All right, Council Club time once again. Welcome everybody. Today is Thursday, March 31st. And wow, we have a lot to get through. Generally with Council Club, we start off with kind of a review of what happened at the previous Tuesday's City Council meeting, which we were just discussing. We think, and as usual, jump in if anyone knows differently, we think that's like the longest City Council meeting possibly ever. It was 7.5 hours. Started at 2 p.m., went till 9:30 at night, which is like too long. If you ask me, it was wild. Anyway, so we will go through, not the entirety of that meeting because it would take longer than we usually allow for. But yeah, so I guess the first cute thing that happened on Tuesday was there was like a clerk award for Eliza Butler, who is the council clerk. If you email cityclerk@cityofomaha.org, you can actually ask to be on the agenda distribution list. And Eliza is helpful. She'll answer questions sometimes and is just a good human. And they recognized her excellence. So that was.
And she's running for school board?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, speaking of that real quick, I also found out as far as people running for, local elections, Dave Fanslaw, our City of Omaha planning director, is running for city council in Papillion. He lives in Papillion. So he is our planning director. Bob Stubbe, who's our public works director, is already on the Papillion city council. So it's just kind of bonkers to me that like chief police Schmatter doesn't live in city limits. Planning director doesn't live in city limits. Public works director doesn't live in city limits. And it's just so messed up that these folks are making huge impactful decisions for a community they do not live in. I'm upset about it. But
we should go to a Papillion city council meeting and just like talk
smack. Yeah. All right. That sounds fun to me. Yeah. Ugh. All right. We will keep rolling. Most of this stuff, actually, I didn't go through every single one, but I'm pretty confident that everything passed 7-0. At least everything up through item 12 did. So all the planning stuff kind of went through no problem. Item 13 was that CIP project on Saddle Creek. There was a $5 million plus TIF request. It was not anything that we didn't expect, meaning, Larry Jobin gets up there, Don Seaton gets up there. They kind of explain how there's going to be plenty of parking. Oh, the one thing that pissed me off about that, some woman from West Omaha who was there actually to talk about the health director stuff later. She is like, I live out west, but I really have a problem with the fact that you aren't building enough parking garages for this development. And I'm like, there's 195 units of parking and 293 parking stalls. So like, just anytime people come to bitch about parking and how there's not enough of it near transit.
Anyway. And the neighbors came out. I think we watched the planning board. Neighbors were there for the planning board. They were there at city council last week for the replat. And they basically been saying the same thing every single time. And it gets voted 7-0 every single time. Like, I kind of feel like, and we even joked about how they're going to make fun of them for wanting them to shovel the sidewalk or to put up or to do some kind of fence. Yeah. And sure enough, without Larry Jobin's like, yeah, they want a 10-foot fence. Like, what idiots? You can't do a 10-foot fence in Omaha. Like, stupid residents. Like,
So it's a bummer and not that unusual that there's condescending chit chat from, the people who are supposed to be helping us understand how these things go. But yeah, so that of course passed 7-0. So onward. Another thing, and I feel like maybe that was part of that conversation, but again, further down the agenda, I'm thinking specifically of I guess it was about the streetcar stuff later on the agenda where Festerson like begrudgingly voted for it. And then he was like, this is not the last opportunity for public engagement. There will be a lot more opportunities for the public to make their opinions heard. And it's like, you don't hear us. You vote 7-0 on all this stuff. Like, you act like you're listening to us, and then you don't actually see that ever reflected in their votes, which is really annoying. But which is a great transition to item 14, which was the $62 million TIF request for Mutual of Omaha. So the things that I pulled out of that, so Kevin Anderson, who's the economic development guy out of the mayor's office, He talked about how very publicly known this planning process has been. And he brought that up 3 times, like right away, which to me is like, that means you know that you're not doing a good job, which is why you have to emphasize how good of a job you're doing with transparency. It's been kind of a joke. We have heard that Mutual Omaha wasn't even originally wanting to build there. They wanted to build on the Lanahaw site, but Stothert wanted her beautiful postcard to have, some fancy, shiny skyscraper at the, Peekper Park. So she talked them into relocating to that land where the Clark Library is, with the lure of the streetcar. So there was a lot of discussion for item 14, which was the Mutual Omaha TIF, but I don't know. I don't think that we're gonna watch that stop. So, so far it's moving right along.
So the Lanahaw lot is 2 blocks to the north. It's an empty lot. It used to be the old UP site. So it's an empty, it's the only empty lot in downtown. And we're actually doing a land swap, or the city of Omaha is swapping the Dale Clark land for the Lanahaw site. And one of the things that Brinker Harding was saying, like when it came to the TIF request, was that right now the city pays $0 in property taxes, because the city doesn't. Does the city pay any property tax on anything? I don't think they do. But to me, it's like they're comparing paying no property tax with all this, just everything that the library does. Like, what a great public service that the library does. Like, you don't need to pay property taxes when you're servicing the public like that. But then also when we switch, so when the Mutual of Omaha takes over for that plot of land, their property taxes will be based on, was it 4 million they said?
For the value of the land.
And so he kept like saying how great it is, how we're actually going to be going from 0 to 4 million. And what I wish someone would have said was, so the Lanahaw lot is going to go from 4 million to 0. Like it's a literal trade. We're trading it off. We're switching property taxes. So to say that Mutual of Omaha is going to be adding 4 million to where there wasn't property taxes being paid before, neglects the fact that when Lanahaw switches, we're going to be subtracting 4 million. So yeah, that was just, yeah.
Good times, yeah. Another part that I feel like I just learned at Tuesday's meeting, listening to it, is a big part of this Mutual Omaha project and development involves 2,200 parking stalls. So there's going to be like, the main floor, the ground level, at least gratefully, is going to be a not public like lobby type area for Mutual Omaha, and then there will be several levels of parking garage before the 4,000 person accommodation, skyscraper. What I learned is that the city of Omaha is going to try to use that parking garage as public parking for nights and weekends. So it's just been really interesting to me how like they just show us all these maps of like how much surface parking and how many garages there are, and then they are building more parking. We'll talk about the Blackstone situation as well, but they're building a mega parking lot in Blackstone. They've got this other one downtown. So it's kind of funny how, I guess what their goal is to consolidate the parking, but I just don't know why we can't just not build parking with every freaking development forever and ever. But I don't know. That was just what always piques my interest, is how much parking.
Yeah, we were joking. I think it was on the urban core housing mobility, where they talked about how we have, is it 17,000 extra parking spaces
at peak occupancy?
Yeah,
and
peak
still
we got 17,000, and then like 10
Yep.
minutes later, we're building another parking garage.
Yeah.
It's just like they literally just hand it off. Like, all right, you.
Yeah.
And we joked about parking in Omaha is the cause of and solution to all of our problems. We've got too much parking. I got an idea. Let's build another garage.
Yeah, how about more parking? Anyway, all right, we will keep moving along. Yeah, Johnson motion for approval. She's really jazzed because that is now in her district too. And so, she did have a little bit of conversation about how she's excited about the jobs. There were some steel workers that showed up in opposition to it because they say it'll create 1,200 construction jobs, but there wasn't any mention specifically of them being local jobs. And so a couple steel workers, Union 251, whatever, showed up and said, make sure they're local. We want to build that building.
And they put Lanahaw on the spot. They're like, hey, you're going to be in charge of hiring construction. Like, and there was this really awkward moment where he's just like, what answer do you want me to say? He's just like, you want more construction jobs? You got them. And it's just like completely not binding. You can't make TIF a TIF request. You can't say, okay, you have to hire local jobs. But he just stood up there and was just like,
absolutely.
What do you want?
Yeah.
You want jobs? You got them. Anyone
Yeah.
else want a job? You got it. And just
Yeah.
like handing out jobs, handing out high fives. Like everyone's getting a job.
In a parking spot.
Yeah, but then like turn around. They're going to go with the cheapest labor they can find. And there's nothing that's going to stop them except maybe a little bit of shame, but yeah.
Okay. So then item 15 was the new urban core housing and mobility redevelopment plan. And they're just talking about how there was an interesting graph that showed parking went up and jobs went down. And there was like this X where they both met. But since 1963, 21,000 jobs have evaporated from the core. And so mostly, I guess I'm grateful that they're not trying to make this sound like it is really a transportation plan, although they kind of do. They are mostly straightforward about the fact that it's economic development. But I do think it's funny that it's called, it starts with housing and mobility. And housing is actually not really their priority. They're talking about, it's the whole like 30, 30, 30, which now they've changed it to 20. So 30,000 new jobs, 30,000 new living units, and then in 20 years. But I got a little bit of pushback. Actually, I got asked to delete a tweet and I did it like a jerk. Anyway, I have a friend who is a planner in Council Bluffs who didn't know anything about these big plans that were just unveiled by the Omaha Chamber, which involves a lot of development in Council Bluffs. And so he tweeted, I'm a planner in Council Bluffs and I didn't know about this. And so I retweeted it because I said, yeah, that was actually something that stood out to me too, is like, why is the Omaha Chamber so worried about what's happening development wise in Council Bluffs? I thought it was like, Omaha's chamber. I get a text message right away from someone at the chamber saying it's the greater Omaha Chamber. So we do actually have offices in Council Bluffs. I'm like, okay. But if you read that 105-page document that the chamber just put out, they're hoping to put a lot of the housing in Council Bluffs. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing that hasn't really got a lot of discussion. Another thing in reading through that plan today, I actually had a reporter contact me today to talk about my feelings about it. So I just kind of ran through that document again. And they're talking about pedestrian tunnels and pedestrian skywalks. Did you all see that? Because I'm like, maybe we could get some painted crosswalks. Like, how about we make sure that the sidewalks are maintained as they are? Because there's a flippin' ADA ramp right by Central High, actually, friends, by the bike union that has been under construction. It's had like a closed sign on that little ramp for years at this point. So the fact that we're like somehow planning for underground pedestrian tunnels and like skywalk, it reminds me of like the Tesla tunnel, like, Elon Musk's tunnel idea. It's like, why are we don't need to be building tunnels. Anyway, so that was frustrating.
Well, and also we've measured the slope and so basically the only pedestrian bridge in Omaha that is ADA compliant is the Bob Carey Bridge, the newest Bob Carey pedestrian bridge. But like, for example, the Dodge Street pedestrian bridge is not ADA compliant. It's too steep, and wheelchair users, for every 30 inches that the ramp goes up, they need somewhere to rest. Because imagine if you're going up the Dodge Street pedestrian bridge and you're in a manual wheelchair and you don't have the strength to get all the way to the top because the slope is too steep. They have to have resting areas every 30 inches of rise. And so I've been looking into it, and the Dodge Street pedestrian bridge would have been built before 1990, which is when the ADA requirements were mandated. And so and the same thing with the 51st Street subway tunnel.
The underpass under Dodge. Yeah.
That is more, obviously it's more than 30 inches. And so there would need to be every 30 inches that it goes up, there would need to be a flat spot for a wheelchair user to rest. And if that's not ADA compliant, I'm not saying they should tear down any of the pedestrian bridges because again, they were built before 1990. But to say that we're going to build new ones is, oh yeah, I don't think there is one pedestrian bridge in Omaha except the Bob Carey. And you know how long that is and how winding it is in order for the slope to be compliant.
Yeah. And they're about to do an extension on that. That's actually on this coming week's agenda. Anyway, so obviously we talk a lot about ADA and parking, but we'll just keep going. I think another just kind of interesting thing that came from that conversation, President Festerson was a little bit, I mean, he was not hesitant to vote yes, actually. Let me stop myself from saying that. He did talk a little bit about how, this seems like it is kind of moving fast and they didn't have a lot of information beforehand, and they felt like they were kind of kept in the dark, but this is not the point of no return. He said the streetcar point of no return is in June. So I'm not sure, like a lot of things that we see come on the agenda, there is like a TIF request and a redevelopment agreement, and then a different kind of agreement, and like there's a lot of different moving pieces. So I guess the point is we'll have a lot of other opportunities to scream into the void and not be heard. But yeah, as Benson says, all talk, it's already a done deal. That's definitely how it feels. I think once again, the fact that the city council was not kept informed about any of this, and they were feeling pretty insulted with how it just like popped up on their desk, like basically the day that they had to vote on it. Just goes to show once again how little the mayor thinks of the council and how it's just her way or the highway.
Well, and also, so we've talked about how at city council, we always kind of said, we'll do the vote count. We're going to be, okay, we need 4 votes to get something to pass or to get something denied. But then we realize it's actually 5 votes because the mayor will veto something if she doesn't like it. And so to think now that the threshold is we need 5 votes, you're not getting 5 votes on anything that would be veto proof. Specifically when it comes to streetcar, Mutual of Omaha, or even the library. All this, those 3 things, you're not getting.
That's what makes it so frustrating, because then, then the public input is just pure theater.
Yep.
And so, and I know I don't want to jump ahead. I'm going to jump ahead. Sorry. So then like Dawaune's statement, which I thought was just so beautifully delivered. I didn't see it while it was happening. I actually saw a recording of it today and just found it really moving. And it's like,
Yep.
And that seemed to at least elicit some reaction. And so I'm kind of thinking maybe that's a direction to go. It's like, screw the research and, well articulated, making your case for all the logical reasons that something should or shouldn't happen, but just, go for the art, go for the heart.
That is, yes, absolutely something that we just actually talked about, because sometimes like we almost went on Tuesday, which thank goodness we didn't, because there's no way I would have lasted until 9:30 at night. But we were talking about how like just sort of for our own entertainment, because we again realizing that not really much is going to sway the opinion or certainly the vote of the council, but like make it performance art, and I talked to Juan. I ran into him outside of Blue Line before the meeting a couple days ahead, and he was talking about how, and for those of you who did listen, it was actually a poem, like rhyming and everything. I was just like, damn, Dawaune. But performance art, make it a little bit fun, and it sometimes is cathartic to like speak at city council, like to them. But sometimes it actually, like we talk a lot of times when we would go and testify, it was kind of more for the media and or for other folks that are listening, because that is maybe how, we've definitely gotten some information out there. I think it just brought different ideas to light. It's not certainly making much of a difference to the council itself, but to other folks listening and the news, sometimes it does make a difference.
I kind of wish like a comedian or improv group it's basically open mic.
Yeah.
And so if you ever been to like an open mic with poetry reading or stand-up comedy,
yeah,
I wish like some local comedians would, we've talked about workshopping, like kind of using our group to be like, hey, what do you want us to say? And we'll get up there and say it.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think mainly focusing on the media or even YouTube, that's people that are watching it. So tons of people watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like actually affecting change, that ship has sailed.
Yeah, totally. I'm just noticing in the chat, Benson asked, can she veto anything passed by the council? And Mark says, yeah, they can override it with 5. A good example of that would be around budget time. Festerson actually proposed a $3 million addition to the CIP, and that passed council, and then she vetoed it, and then they didn't have enough, which requires a
tried.
super majority, yeah, which is 5 out of 7, which again, 5, 6, and 7, those districts are held by Rowe, Harding, and Melton, and they are pretty much lockstep with the mayor. I guess I was like a little bit happy that Rowe voted against that one TIF for the casino, but like that's really the only time that he's broken, it seems like, from the other Republicans. So yeah, it's a 4-3 council, 4 Democrats, 3 Republicans, but then good luck ever getting a mayoral veto overturned, because Melton's basically a mini-me. She and Harding are close, and then Rowe is just like kind of the new guy who mostly votes with them. So not to be a bummer, but yeah, that's unlikely. All right. Oh, I also thought, okay, so they're talking about how the area, the TIF district that they are drawing to create money to build the streetcar was kind of an interesting conversation, and how 25, I didn't fully understand exactly how Pete was explaining it, but it sounds like 25% of the TIF proceeds from new development will go to this, which, and I'm sure I'm not understanding something correctly, but isn't the whole point of TIF like a but-for argument? So if they're able to like not, I don't know, somehow if we're taking TIF money, I don't understand how it works. It just seems convoluted, and they know it's convoluted because they actually have to hire that muni cap. We talked about this last week. It was a late addition to the agenda, but it was a $100,000 professional agreement with a consulting group called MuniCap to see if their harebrained idea about using TIF so they're going to actually sell private bonds. So the big thing, the way that the mayor is selling the streetcar is that it won't be on the taxpayer. It won't be on the taxpayer. So it's going to be private bonds. And then those private bondholders are going to be paid off by the TIF development proceeds, which seems so convoluted. I don't know. I don't fully understand it. And I think it's designed to be a little bit complicated and confusing.
It felt like they were trying to explain how to lift yourself up by the bootstraps.
Yeah.
Like it felt like magic, or like a 3-card Monty, like the shell game, and just like, it's under here, it's under here, and we're going to move this money over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the muni cap. I think it's definitely going to be like, and did you hear Pete say for that muni cap, he's like, you need to hurry up because we're going to vote on this in 2 months.
Yeah.
And I forget the name of the lawyer for the mayor's office. She's like, we're talking to them as soon as this gets passed.
Approved, yeah.
We're talking to them tonight. And so they were talking with MuniCap, like, and you could hear him like, this needs to be rushed, like quick, fast.
And that's part of why I'm skeptical about a lot of this, is because everything is just on this like fast forward timeline, and everything seems so like, oh, if we don't do this now, it's so, you know, eventually they might not hit one of their like crucial timelines, and then maybe stuff will stall.
Well, you know what's going to stall? It's going to be the 1401 Jones. There's going to be a disruption in services for the downtown branch. That's going to be the one to be like, oh, we missed that by, you know, couple years.
Yeah,
we missed that one up.
Yeah, that'll be. I think, okay, the other thing that I wanted to bring up as far as this redevelopment plan is affordable housing comes in as kind of like a maybe if there's a TIF windfall. So like they're calling it their urban core housing and mobility plan when they should just call it freaking streetcar district, and then not even mention affordable housing, because they said that they're hoping to capture up to $356 million of TIF money, and only 305 is what the streetcar they think will cost, although this MuniCap is also recalculating everything, so this all might be bogus. And so then they're thinking, if there's extra money after all that, then maybe they can deal with affordable housing. And I'm like, I don't know if you've read many articles about how there's a streetcar crisis, but I've sure read some about how there's an affordable housing crisis. And again, our priorities, meaning Stother's priorities, are just a little bit out of whack. I don't understand why the streetcar needs to be her priority. So affordable housing is on the back burner, even though the name housing leads the plan. It's, you know, as we were talking, smoke and mirrors and like just it's confusing intentionally.
And then Larry Storr, who was our curmudgeon, got up. And I think he kind of stumbled upon a genius idea of turning the streetcar into a mobile bar so they could serve beer and alcohol on the streetcar. Like, I thought, was like, I must have misheard him. But I was like, that's a great idea. The streetcar bar, just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is going to basically be, and this is what I told the reporter today, like the only thing that I can see that could potentially be good about the streetcar as far as like transportation, because again, it's an economic development tool, let's be clear. But sometimes what you see with streetcars is the fancy people who it's built for get comfortable with riding not in their own private vehicle enough that they might take the orbit sometime, or they might take the bus. It's kind of a gateway, transit option from a streetcar to real public transportation. So I don't know if I'm trying to be positive, I guess that's what I would say with that. But the other thing that I heard from that is when I think it was maybe Troy Anderson was up at this point in time, but he was saying that these redevelopment agreements have to specifically lay out what money can be spent on. And in the document that they just passed, there was nothing about bike lanes being something that they were going to spend money on. So of course that pisses me off. I also, in that, the big document that the chamber put out and the document that was attached to last week's agenda, Hardy Street is just considered a demonstration project. There's nothing making it permanent. So pisses me off, but I'm not surprised. All right. Then I stopped taking notes because then I went and got a massage and came back and it was still happening. But I do definitely remember how it was on a parcel of land that was being sold. Three different ones. From the city owned it and they were selling it to just private buyers. And there was one in North Omaha, or a couple in North Omaha.
28th in Ohio.
Yeah, that were being purchased by I'll just say white couple that are developers, and they're like, the housing costs these days are crazy. Like, we can do it for cheaper. We're going to build some duplexes or something. And so Councilor Johnson, because that's her district, it's North Omaha. She was like, have you talked to the neighborhood? Have you talked to your council person? Me? No, you haven't. And the guy that was zooming in, the developer, he's like, no, I haven't, but I've been working with the planning department. And they didn't tell me I had to do that. Like, I've done everything that the planning department has told me to do. And Councilor Johnson was like, well, I'd like to lay it over for a couple of weeks then so that you can have a chance to talk with me and the neighborhood association and that sort of thing. And then, and Fanslaw, the planning director who doesn't live in Omaha, was like, yeah, she's right. We didn't talk to them, but like the developer did everything I asked him to do and it shouldn't be a problem. And Brinker Harding lost his mind. He like gets into a screaming match back and forth between Johnson and Harding. It was embarrassing. Like, I couldn't even hardly watch. It was real bad. And he voted no on her motion to lay it over, which it did pass her motion to lay it over. But that was like, if I could record, well, it is recorded, but the way that Brinker Harding said no was just like stunning. It was, talk about like performance art. It was really something else. It was an absolute temper tantrum, and I just was like,
and that was it was at 9:15.
Yeah.
So they've been going at it for 7 hours.
Yeah,
that's a pretty long. I think we had a snack in between. We might have eaten dinner
and a massage. Yeah,
like we got up, like, man, sitting for 7 hours, which the chiropractor who talked about the health director,
we haven't even got to that. Yeah,
he's just like, it's not good to sit for 7 hours. He's like, this is not good for anyone. And bless Anton from the reader, he couldn't make it. He's like, I can't do it. I gotta go. He's like, this is not. I did not sign up for this.
Yeah.
But he said he was hurting too.
Yeah. Yep. That was wild. Okay. So we'll talk about the health director.
Man, so yeah, speaking of, so they moved around all the streetcar stuff was item like 44. They moved
67.
They pushed that to the front of the line. And there was like 4 or 5. The Mutual of Omaha, they pushed to the front of the line. All the streetcar stuff and urban core and the Muni cap, all that stuff got moved to the front of the agenda. I don't know if you guys follow Dr. Lindsay Huse on Twitter. Around maybe around 6 o'clock, she was like, oh, I'm getting kind of hungry. Can someone send me a snack? Can someone, give me a snack down here? And I'm just like, how embarrassing that Dr. Huse, who is the city's health director, sat there the entire time. So after they did all the Mutual of Omaha, Streetcar, and after they let Jay Noddle go along his, get him home in time for dinner, they then went and did liquor. They did liquor licenses.
Yeah.
And then they went back to normal order and got to the Lindsay Hughes at around like 8 o'clock at night. I was like, what? How disrespectful.
And that was the most opposition and support and opposition was for that item. So if they were actually being like respectful to the people that are trying to participate,
they don't. We already know.
Vinny could not stop pointing his finger at Dr. Hughes, and just like
that about.
And mentioned power several times. You know what I mean? He was bullying.
Yeah, that was really.
Like,
I mean,
weird.
Yeah, I thought it was really over the top and like.
This is one of the times I've been most impressed with Festerson, though, when he took Matt Kuzi to school, the city law department.
Yeah, that was pretty amusing. But back to Palermo, I mean, he got so twisted up in this bizarre circular logic, and also what I remembered very differently in terms of fact. It was strange.
Yeah, he was rewriting history.
Yeah, they didn't act fast enough when it took the city council 3 weeks to do it. I don't know how long it took Lindsay Hughes to do it, or Dr. Hughes.
Yeah.
But that was
Well, and he just refused to acknowledge the fact that Adipur was in a very different position when if she had tried to initiate a mask mandate, it would have put important funding in jeopardy, and which Hughes, rightly pointed out, but Palermo just like seemed to, conveniently forget that was part of the picture.
Yeah, and I think the way that it's like knocking around in his head is like, we should have had masks earlier. I was interested in masks. And like, he doesn't realize that by this proposal that he's put together, like, it's probably not going to just be as simple as like, should we have a mask mandate? And so I think that it was really interesting to hear all of the doctors, all of the professional experts on the case talking about how like, what epidemic means, right? And it's different than a pandemic. And if you put this into law as written, we're going to have to talk to you if we find like a dirty kitchen at a restaurant,
Right. And that was part of the great fun between Festerson and Kuzi, because, the whole thing about why did you use this language? Why did you use epidemic instead of pandemic? It's like, well, we basically copied the shit from 1949.
Yes, exactly. Like, good try, ding dong. What are you doing? Like it's just, that guy cracks me up, his voice. But yeah, he was taken to task, and I did appreciate watching that.
I feel like the mass lawsuit, the judge said that Lindsay Hughes had the authority, but then the attorney general is going to, what's it called when they not relitigate, but appeal. Thank you. So it's on an appeal, but the judge did rule in favor of Dr. Hughes. But then then it expired, so it kind of seems moot at this point.
Yeah, that's just wild.
And Danny Bagley got swooped into the unelected bureaucrat talk.
Yeah.
Problem with.
And he's like, I don't use those words, meaning that, I'm not being condescending, like unelected bureaucrats, just a thing. But yeah, it was quite a conversation. All right. So that is maybe all that happened on Tuesday. Probably not. Are we forgetting any highlights? Anybody else have any other exciting points to talk about before we start looking ahead to next Tuesday?
I just want to, kind of laugh together about how at one point, and it was late in the game, but on one of those series of votes with the developer in North Omaha getting, whatever approvals, and Amy Melton was absolutely not paying attention. I don't know what she was doing, but she had her head down, and she voted along with the Democrats on one of the 2 or 3 questions.
Mhm.
And Harding, after, in the preceding vote, growling his no vote, he just shot her like this death glare. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, those two. Because, yeah, they always, I mean, it's very rare if they don't vote identically. So, yeah, that was so many little gems. But overall, embarrassing. Do better, city council. Like, you're representing your constituents and you're not doing a good job at that. And you're not doing a good job at, like, I mean, I was actually, I think Pete did kind of call them out of order. He was like, all right, let's.
Yeah, he said let's take this conversation offline. Like he had to break them up. It would have gone on.
Yeah, it was really pathetic and embarrassing, and I'm not surprised because it is what it is, but
And the developer, he's like, they asked him, "Are you okay with coming back in 2 weeks?"
Mhm.
And he's like, "Yeah, sure." He's like, "Just as long as this meeting, the next meeting is as long." And that, like, you can see them all like, oh, like laugh, like nervous laughter, like, "Oh, we needed that, just a little bit of brevity."
yeah, it was intense. It was embarrassing, and I mean, part of me does appreciate like Johnson's point, which is we're trying to do things better. We're not doing things status quo anymore. Like, I was elected because people really want more involvement, and like this is a way that I'm going to interject myself and make sure that there's more conversation with the neighborhood and more engagement with the community. So like, I don't really fault her for that, but I do agree that if the planning department told the guy to do XYZ and the guy did all those things, then like it's not really, I don't know, it's complicated. But
One of the things I was hoping someone would bring up in that conversation and did not, to my knowledge, that developer was buying city-owned land in North Omaha. And nobody said District 2 is the district that has the most number of plots that could be developed in this manner, owned by the city. So maybe we should take a closer look and do something, that involves a little bit more neighborhood engagement than in other districts. And, that it seemed like an opportunity to raise that point, and that was lost.
Yeah, I totally agree with that point. I thought, and then like Brinker Harding even tried to equate it to, if I sell a piece of land to Mr. Palermo, well, and again, no, that's not, it's apples and oranges, because this is right, exactly like you said. And so, frankly, Miss Johnson, like, she missed an opportunity to say, well, Mr. Fansel, I think we need to reassess this procedure moving forward. You know what I mean? Because if he did everything the planning department, moves forward, we need to change how we're doing things moving forward.
exactly right.
And can anyone explain why they're charging this landowner $4,000 for one plot of land when they give Habitat for Humanity 36 properties for $1? Like, is it land bank different than this sale? Was this property not in the land bank? Or is the dollar properties come from, I think I feel like Mark Brennan, you've talked about a separate list that is not land bank, that is just like, where the not chamber, but I'm sorry, Habitat for Humanity will get their.
Well, yeah, they're all the 36, that big package deal that you were talking about, that wasn't land bank. Those weren't land bank. Those were city-owned properties, just like this one is now. So yeah, again, they're separate from the land bank. And
I feel
this is why Habitat got them for cheap, I guess, is because they're a nonprofit, and they, that for the larger redevelopment. But that, no, there's just totally separate from the land bank.
But the land bank, I was gonna say the land bank usually sells stuff like at whatever market rate is, which is like 50 to 66 cents per square foot. And that's kind of one of the issues with the land bank. So like, if you remember, like the whole thing with like Omaha permaculture going on like a couple of months ago, the thing was that the land bank wouldn't just give them the lots for $1 each. They needed to raise the money to buy it at this like 50 cents a square foot, because the land bank it's got to be solvent basically. And they're supposed to sell properties.
So again, why does Habitat for Humanity get the sweetheart deals for $1?
Because they're a nonprofit and they do bigger development, I guess.
Yeah, because they've been working with the city.
I feel like we've seen the dollar. It's not just for Habitat. I feel like there's a couple of other.
So some of it some of it is like the land bank land that like Habitat gets is like the land bank is holding that for Habitat.
Well, now we're talking 270. Yeah.
Yeah.
The city got property for dollar, but also the Habitat has a lot of land in the land bank.
Yeah.
Well, a conversation that we have a lot is about redlining. Actually, more movement in Omaha for racial equity. They've reached out to us about Council Club. So hi, Ajmal, if you're watching. They were just doing an event tonight about redlining. And I just think like anytime a property that the city owns that is in a redline area should have, I don't know, that the process should somehow dictate that it goes to someone who already lives in that district, who maybe has some implications from being, you know, discriminated against previously. Nothing, you know, necessarily against this wealthy enough white couple that can buy up little pieces here and there and develop and do whatever they want. But I think that if we're going to get real about undesigning the red line, these are opportunities that we're missing.
And that 28th in Ohio is it's in the undesirable or declining, I forget the name of it's in the red, the map of redlining, it's in the red area.
Yeah.
Which brings us to, I was just looking at that map. And so looking forward on this week's city council agenda, item number 15, they're going to designate, what is it? The A&R salvage area as extremely blighted. So this is a community redevelopment area. And I was just like listening to the more talking about redlining. And they talked about this one little area kind of north of the stockyards that there used to be a brewery in the 30s and people didn't want to live near a brewery. And that's exactly where the A&R salvage is. And so we're literally going to make a redlined area. We're going to, it's almost like re-redlining, or I don't know what the proper, but yeah, it's just funny how the maps line up.
You know what they're doing there is that community health development partners like soccer fields and all that.
I think they're doing eminent domain.
But
out,
I will say that I went to their first community engagement session that they did, and they said that they could do that development with just a CRA and not an EVA. The developer said that. So just putting that up.
Interesting. I read something about how, you know, they had a community, you know, engagement meeting and 50 people showed up and no one was against the proposal. So, and I was just like, really? Because I heard that there was
That's not true. It was a very contentious meeting.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that was just, you know, I mean, it just goes to show that people can write whatever they want into these applications and there's very little fact checking. But yeah, if you look at it, it's like, yeah, we had a meeting, 50 people were there. There wasn't really pushback. Everyone's into the idea. We're moving along. So
we talk about how the word meeting, it shouldn't be used. It's more of a presentation.
Yeah.
And or a
it's not a dialogue.
Yeah, there's not a back and forth.
I will say there was definitely 50 people there, but 48 of them were angry and 2 of them may have been plants. Like
yeah. Ugh, that's wild how they can just misrepresent that so easily.
But they checked that box. We had the meeting. We engaged with the public.
Yeah.
They hate our guts. We checked that box. Yeah. All good.
Yeah. All right. We're going to just kind of breeze through some other stuff on this upcoming agenda. Items 6 through 11 are just all planning items that the planning board recommends unanimous approval on. So I'm sure that'll all be 7-0. Nothing looks like it'll be too wacky there. Item 12 is a TIF request for about $4 million for the new development happening at 39th and Dodge. It's going to be for 136 market rate units with 88 underground parking spots and then 13 street parking spots. And what I liked about that application, which I read like a nerd, it actually requires bike parking. So 17 bike parking spots is the minimum that they will have to have there because they've actually updated some of their, like, I don't know if it's just around TOD specifically, but yeah, I just think it's cool when they're mandating bike parking. So that was a tiny ray of sunshine.
That's the north of Dodge. It's an empty lot right now.
Yeah. Yep. It used to be like that travel lodge or something years ago, and yeah.
Oh, they found the dead person.
Right. Yeah. It's been
The
a
travel.
problematic property for a long time.
And that yummy Vietnam restaurant.
Man, that you must ate there different times because I ate there once and I felt sick. Anyway, okay, so it's gonna turn into market rate apartments. Exciting times. Then there's another TIF request. Item 13 is for that Noddle project on 54th and Leavenworth. The applicant has actually asked for that to be pushed back to April 12th, so there won't be public hearing or vote. But yeah, yep, it's where like the Max Walker is, and they're gonna put
Just west of that. Yeah, so the old J. Coco building, which was before that the Woolner's grocery store, is going to stay, and the pharmacist is going to move back into that. The Max Walker dry cleaner building, they're trying to get like a coffee shop or restaurant in there. So the townhomes are going to be built just west of that, facing onto Leavenworth and going back a little bit. I did, so, you know, since that's literally, you know, a couple blocks from my house. So I've been paying attention to this one.
Yeah.
And Jen Bauer wrote a letter that was mildly supportive, like asking, basically summarizing some community meetings that they've had with the neighborhood association. And a lot of it sounds like a lot of the neighborhood association, so that's like Axarban neighborhood, is worried about the cost of the townhomes because they're wildly higher than many of the houses, which are generally kind of, you know, smaller houses south of Leavenworth. And then also just the materials that they're planning to use, you know, on the exterior just don't really seem in sync with the materials of the neighborhood. So, I mean, I thought it was interesting that Jen Bauer, you know, basically was saying, look, we've had these conversations. We think we can work together. You know, here are the things that are still sort of sticking points, and but generally was not like, oh dear God, no, don't.
Yeah.
So you know, I felt somewhat encouraged by seeing that they had conversations that at least felt like to the president or head of the neighborhood association that they were productive and that they were being listened to by the developers.
So that is not what it came across as at the planning board when they heard this, which of course the planning board approved it 7-0. She stood up and spoke and said a lot of those things, and Jay Noddle was basically like, we might work with you on the color, but like, no, it's fine. So it didn't sound to me like she felt, I mean, actually, and we know for a fact she reached out to us and was like, that was bogus. So she did not feel like it was well received, unfortunately.
But I think she was.
That's too bad, because her letter, well, then she toned it down in her letter. That's one of the attachments on the agenda.
Right, yeah. And I mean, they are $450,000 per unit, which is outrageous in my opinion. And the other thing that really pissed me off when it was at the planning board and Noddle was presenting his glorious plan was how he was like, it's right on the number 11, and this is going to be great, you know, transit access, and PS, we're building attached 2-car garages for every unit. And I was just like, you don't get to say both, buddy. You don't get to be like, this is visionary and we appreciate transit, and then PS, we're building a 2-car garage on every unit.
Yeah, that doesn't make any kind of sense. And it at that price point, I mean, criminy, my 3-bedroom house wouldn't even get that much.
Right.
So I don't know, like, what the hell are they going to have, like marble countertops and, you know, mahogany woodwork throughout them? I mean, what?
Yeah, no kidding. That's going to be wild. So gold toilets. Yeah. Trump Palace on Leavenworth. Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, you know, I doubt it'll have any hangups. I am curious about why they're postponing it to the 12th, but we'll hear about it then, I guess. All right.
Oh, there was some explanation about that in one of the attachments. Now I can't remember what it was. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's right. I read the attachments too, and I just saw like a little bit of back and forth, like you better request it quick because the agenda's going out today.
Gold toilets.
But it was, yeah, that's what I don't know. But yeah, I didn't think it had a lot of detail about why, but I don't know.
So maybe, Sarah, maybe that's where you've had an impact, is now they're all going to start talking about, well, you can also take this bus route, but we're going to have 2-car garages. Whereas before they would have just said 2-car garages. So maybe you've made some impact.
Thanks, Cindy.
No, Jay Noddle said specifically, he's like, I will not build any project in Omaha without adequate parking. Like he's just like laughed. He's like, don't even.
And
talk to
he's
me
the
about it."
head of the freaking urban mobility, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, like
Right.
you can't.
This is so flippin' corrupt. It
Yeah.
just, oh, it just makes my head spin.
Yep, yeah. Welcome to Council Club. We know everything stinks. All right, speaking of that, 14 is, actually, I don't really have a particular problem with this project. It's the Schooler building right across the street from Central High at 20th and Dodge, and they're converting, I guess there's like a gymnasium and event space in there, and they're converting it to offices. They want 1.4 million in TIF. Why are we building so many office buildings, y'all? Like, people don't work like we used to.
I don't get that either. And I actually, like, you know, a million years ago, because I've lived here, it seems like a million years now, went to a wedding or retirement party or something at the Schooler building, and that event space was really cool. I mean, it was a neat space. And so, yeah, to like put a bunch of rabbit warren cubicles in there just seems like a disgrace.
I agree. And Noemi, it's it's like on the other side of Dodge from Central, basically. So 20, I don't know the exact address, but 20th and Dodge, basically. And yeah, I know, I feel like a gymnasium and an event space seems more reasonable than office spaces when we keep hearing about like, oh, we can't fill our office, but let's build a lot more of them. I don't know, whatever. So that's item 14. I'm sure it'll pass no problem. 15, we talked about a little bit. It's the CRA, Community Redevelopment Area, which is deeming that A&R salvage parcel. It's actually 683 acres. So big chunk of land. But that's going to turn into, you know, a TIF request at some point because it's extremely blighted. And so now that development where everyone was happy at the meeting, yeah, that's item 15. 16 through 21, that's the liquor license requests. I did notice, you know, probably all of them will pass, but whenever there's a liquor license request in North Omaha, again, District 2, Johnson is the representative for that district, and she will quiz the applicant.
Yeah, compared to District 1.
Oh yeah, where people make that, as we literally put in the joke or in the notes, he likes to make band jokes whenever he gets to talk to these broy guys that own a couple bars in Benson. And yeah,
Well, specifically like it's a great Shakedown Street, which I think is a Grateful Dead song.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to think of, like, it's almost something we wanted to workshop as far as like performance art, or if Dawaune is going to go speak again, like we're thinking of trying to figure out some way to beat Festerson to the punch, to be like, we don't care that you're in a rock band. We don't care that you like the Grateful Dead. Like, do your job, quit like kissing up to these bars that are never going to have your stupid band come and play. But yeah, I'm sure he'll give them, he always says you want 30 seconds to advertise for your space.
Building, yeah.
And Roe did the same thing. Roe was like,
Yeah.
hey, Begley, we got fish and chips out west. And then then you're right. Councilmember Johnson will be like, what are you doing for my community? Like, why should we give you this? Because whenever they do have liquor licenses, they do kind of, that's the one time, or it seems like the one time where if it's in your district, you're the one that usually has to propose the motion. They make, you know, there's kind of like some unsung rules, or unspoken rules.
I did want to just talk really quickly. So the Grown Folks, which is the bar in North Omaha, they are actually asking for an extension to do like a beer garden and patio smoking area, which is significantly larger. The patio area is almost, I mean, and they didn't have the exact dimensions on the building, but from their drawing, it looks like it's almost twice the size of the initial building. The other thing is they have to draw a little map, you know, with the drawing, and they, you know, north, south, east, west, they like screwed up east and west, which made me sad. So I'm not really sure if it's on what side of 24th Street, but I was just kind of a sad attachment.
So I was trying to, I don't know of this current council starting in June when the 3 new members were inaugurated. I believe every single liquor license has been passed. I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 liquor licenses during right when Chris Jerem left.
Oh yeah, because he embarrassed that guy.
Yeah, he was just like, hey, you got a couple of DUIs on your record.
Yeah, such a dick
And
move.
he kind of was just like, I'm not your lawyer, but if I were, I would recommend you step away. And he's just like, oh, and remember, yeah, it was embarrassing. It was kind of seemed like it wasn't even. Ugh.
It was bad. A lot of us women who are running were like texting each other like, oh my God, he's like literally intentionally embarrassing an applicant. Like, this is so unkind and uncalled for and unreasonable. And why didn't you just call him ahead of time if you have these feelings? You don't want to just like actually help him. You just want to embarrass him.
Yeah, I feel like a lot have been laid over. I know in North Omaha, Councilmember Johnson will lay him over like, hey, you need to talk. But specifically this in the last, what's it been, 8 months, I don't think that any of them have ever actually been denied. Yes, layovers, but never, I don't recall any being denied. And the same thing goes for TIF, like that.
Oh yeah, tips and sure.
Definitely never denied.
Yeah.
Well, I got a post I found. So Palladino requested TIF in 2019 and he got roasted, not only by the audience, but by Ben Gray and even Festerson. Everyone had. So that's what it takes. You have to get that
mega slumlord status before they question.
So that's literally the only TIF request that I can find that was ever denied. I'm still looking for the second one.
And usually there's 7-0. I mean, that's again why that row vote against the TIF for the casino was shocking, because usually it's just like, yep. Already planning board recommended approval. So
TD Ameritrade was 5-2. It still passed. And actually Stothert was one of the no votes for TD Ameritrade.
Fascinating. All right, we're gonna keep rolling because somehow
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go
For
ahead.
TD Ameritrade, for the stadium or for the headquarters?
No, for the old bill.
Yeah.
So for the
Headquarters,
old,
not the.
and that one, so they, what's it called? They designated the area blighted. That got pushed back. And then it's basically the whole reason for the original community redevelopment area was for TD Ameritrade. So they did TD Ameritrade a favor, designated this tiny little area where they wanted to build as blighted. They give them the TIF. They pay off the TD Ameritrade paid the TIF off, I think in 2 years, record time. And then in 2014, they undesignated this, they unblighted that area. And so that kind of shows us that they can basically
do whatever they want.
Yeah.
What a surprise. I love that with the new redevelopment area with the urban core, blah, 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 they are deeming, such a huge swath of downtown as blighted or extremely blighted. And it includes their beautiful new park that they just spent, who knows how many, well, I guess we do.
300 million.
Yeah. So that's blighted now because we can get money. It's just.
It's going to be overshadowed by a dumb fuck tower.
Literally in the shadow of this new stupid tower. Yeah.
And they were talking about how I think Blackstone was blighted, I want to say 20 years ago. And so we've had at least 2 censuses since then.
Yeah.
But we found out that the new census data, which influences the original CRA blighting designation, does not get updated. And so they're going to go this whole urban let's call it streetcar TIF area. They're using 30-year-old census data to make a new district. That's why I feel like the MuniCap's going to be like,
whatever. We're paying MuniCap to tell us what we want to hear is what I bet. But all the grass is a full sun blend, and it's going to be shaded out. Well, good.
Yeah.
We'll have a dead grass in the park. All right. What else? Maha liquor license item number 21. Big deal. Consent agenda stuff we already heard. That'll pass no problem. Items 25 through 52 are resolution or consent agenda with public hearings. I was happy to see we are spending millions of dollars on items 31 through 33 on ADA ramp and curb projects at various locations all around town, because as we talked about earlier, there's a lot that needs help. Let's see. Oh, 35, I was just looking at the attachment. It's another, it's like a change order amendment for some residential concrete repair. But if you look at that attachment, a lot of the stuff is crossed out. Like some of it was even like NDOT requirements and like environmental stuff. I don't know if anybody else looked at that, but I was just like, that's a lot of stuff that's lined through. Just an observation. More street resurfacing. in item 41. Oh, but item 39. So we talked a little bit about bridges and ADA and all that stuff. There's a project that's been in the CIP for a while. They call it the Baby Bob. So it connects the Bob Carey Pedestrian Bridge from kind of the base of it, and then it'll connect over those railroad tracks and dump you kind of onto Mike Fahey. So that will actually be a good project. This is, I guess they're like redesigning it though. So this is $235,000. Again, item 39. So that's some design and engineering work happening on that. And then 47 is just a little housekeeping type thing, but it's for the North Omaha Trail. So it's just fun to see that that's moving along. They're just designating some city-owned property that was just right away specifically for this trail, which is cool. 48 is just talking about Benson Days parade route.
So real quick with the Benson Days, they're having it this year.
They are. Yep.
Nice.
They actually asked me to lead a bike ride, so that'll be happening on the Sunday of
But the
Benson
parade too.
Days. The parade is happening on that Saturday. Yep. Yeah. So I think that's the last weekend of July. $400,000 in item 51 is going to renovate Upland Park's spray ground. So that's at 31st and Jefferson. And yeah. So
I feel like Stothard was at the front of the Benson parade one year, or was that?
oh,
Pete?
she sure was, because she waved at me like the
Yeah.
delightful human that she is. Yeah, and I was just not happy to see her there. But yeah, she
Are we allowed to
was.
boo?
I just shook my head at her. It's like, but I don't know. I'm sure you could boo. It's very loud. No one would even know. Okay, I'm reading this. Noddle lied and said the studies they used leading up to this were attached to the urban core redo plan. They're not. Do you want to say anything else about that, Mark?
Oh, the noddle.
Just that the studies aren't there, I guess. Weird. Noddle lied on.
Yeah, they just misspoke. That's
Yeah, I'm sure.
whatever you call them. You can't say they lied. They just misspoke.
Anywho. Oh, okay. Item 52. Did anybody notice that one? We're sending expired armor to Ukraine. I was like, why is it expired? They're about to destroy it because they don't think that it works anymore. But like, let's act like we're nice and send it to Ukraine. I don't know.
Iowa is doing the same thing. I heard that on NPR. I think Des Moines is doing the same thing.
That's just weird. I don't know. Anyway, I don't think, well, whatever. Okay, 54 is the Streetcar Authority. That's actually going to be voted on this coming Tuesday. So that'll be interesting, again, just to see if there's any more discussion about it. The way that the Streetcar Authority is designed right now, it will have, I believe it's a 7-member board, 3 appointed by the mayor, of course, 3 appointed by Metro CEO, who's a decent human, and then 1 by the Chamber of Commerce. So good luck to us on that. Then 55 is going to be voted on, and it is basically, also I want to see what's in this comment here. Also says something about our policing system, that they have the same gear as needed in war. Absolutely. We have a way too militarized police force. Good point. Thank you, Lonnie. Okay, so item 55 is, we talked about this a little bit last time, how they are building a new parking structure in Blackstone. So we just gave them, I want to say it was like 6 million in TIF or something like that. And then we're actually going to buy the parking structure from Blackstone Parking LLC for $18 million. So we love parking. So that is going to be voted on, and that's number 55. And then the health director situation, that vote is also happening on Tuesday. That's under 56. So you have to, yes, exactly. Planned obsolescence, expiration dates, so that we can continue fueling more money into war machine. Okay. Items 58 through 60, that's a lot of like collective bargaining stuff and amendments to like how different people who work for the city, like pay raises and insurance stuff and taking away dental and I don't know, a bunch of stuff there. And then 61 is the charter convention. That's public hearing. It's coming Tuesday. So if you have feelings about how the mayor has taken us back to 1965, I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so it's in the attachment, it talks about how this coming up charter convention is going to have 15 members, 8 appointed by the mayor, and then 1 by each councilor. And I just did a quick using the World Herald archive. So in the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the past 5 charter conventions,
Meaning 50 years.
50
because they happen
years.
every 10 years.
yeah, we've had 25 members. And the ratio used to be each council member got to choose 2. So that's 14 by the council. And then am I doing my math?
11 by the mayor.
11 by the mayor. And then so now the mayor wants to flip that, and it would be 8 by the mayor and 7 by the council. It's just a quick math. The ratio before was 55% would have been by council, 45 by the mayor, and now she wants to flip that. And the last time that we had a 15-member charter convention was in 1965. And I don't go past 1956 because that's when we came up with the home rule charter, when we, as Omaha, when we first actually started voting for a mayor and city council. We used to have city commissioners before that. And so literally we're going back to 1965. And it's so funny because we already have a strong mayor. It's just like she doesn't want to release any little bit of grip.
No, she wants more power all the time. And I'm going to be interested to see what those people that she appoints to this committee are going to be trying to suggest.
It's an interesting thing. So we've talked a lot about how we want to have the mayoral and city council election moved to be in sync with the governor, or just move the election so it's not in a completely off year. And that had been discussed at the 03 convention and at the 2013 convention. So we've been talking about that for at least 20 years. And I'm almost positive it's going to be talked about at this one. But and another interesting one, at the 2003 convention, they tried to prohibit city council members from simultaneously holding other elected offices. So for those of you that don't know, Danny Begley is on the Papio. He's elected on the Papio NRD board. I think that would be hilarious if they could get that one passed. But yeah, I have very little hope, especially with the mayor having the majority of
The
appointments, and then you combine that with the 3 from the West Omaha Republican districts. Yeah.
So even if we spoke at the meeting and said we opposed the mayor changing the, breakdowns, and would want to see city council have a bigger chunk of the representation on the charter convention, it's not going to matter, right? Because it won't be veto proof. Even if the Democrats changed it, right? It'll
Correct.
go to the mayor, she'll throw it back to the council, and then the council won't have enough to override the veto.
Yep.
But like worth it to slow stuff down for her?
I can slow it down.
Not at all.
It won't even slow it down, really. I
think-
mean,
yeah,
not
the
much,
only-
at least.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, so it becomes a performance piece, and maybe we get some media attention, but it
that's what I'm
doesn't
talking about.
have any. But maybe that's the public opinion, the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
might be important.
It does seem like long-term plans like that are good, like if you can bring more attention to something about how, bring it up to more people that this is different in a very significant way than the way it's been done in the past. Because there you up when she was Streetcar, she kind of made the intimated that she's might run again.
Yeah.
And so just bringing up as much stuff now as I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of a way that it is worth it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's also some talk about potentially a recall endeavor. And so, this might be one of those things where it's like, wow, the mayor just really is so full of herself. She's creating even more power here and here and here, so yeah, I mean, I think I agree with she doesn't get called out by name enough at council, because we don't ever have an opportunity to actually speak to her, but she watches. So I think that, yeah, this might be an opportunity to just be like, we see you, sneaky lady. We don't like it.
And I think also informing the media, because I had just a Twitter conversation with John Kipper. I see, I don't know, channel 3, I forget what channel, but we were going back and forth on TIF votes, and he kind of just, he didn't know, or he couldn't tell me which TIF had ever gotten 2 no votes. And I'm like, I don't know of
Yeah,
any. He's just
we
like, oh,
can't
neither do
find
I.
one. Yeah,
And so I feel like I don't think the TIF, I'm sorry, not TIF. I don't think the media, unless we tell them that we're going back to 1965,
Right.
if we give them that soundbite even
Yeah.
ahead of time so that
Yeah.
we can start researching it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, especially the TV reporter, they're so young and there's such high turnover. You know, they don't typically stay around a long time. Some of the anchors do, but the reporters on the ground really don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to basically approach them as if they know nothing.
Yeah. Because
And city council is like, the thing it is good for is going publicly on the record, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would say everyone should come up with something to say about it. I don't know.
And what did we see on Twitter for the charter? Is who's doing some kind of workshops?
One, Omaha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know if.
Yeah, we have,
Alex,
I know that One Omaha has like a couple of blog posts about it right now, and originally was going to host a workshop about it. But the thing about the city charter is that it's kind of like the budget, where it like does tend to happen the same way, but it doesn't have to. So it's like a hard thing to inform people on that is going to happen, because you don't want to say like it's going to happen like this. Like, for example, like, you know, you could have said 6 weeks ago, like, okay, well, you're going to have this many people on the charter convention, and you would have been, you know, you would have been putting out incorrect information. It would have been correct that the last charter convention had that many people on it, but that doesn't indicate that it has to be like it that this time around. So I know that like One Omaha plans to just put out as much accurate information as possible as it becomes available.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, I don't know anybody that is like, this is where I would come for like a quote unquote study group around the city charter and that sort of thing.
Is it, do we even know how long it is? I think I saw somewhere it's
Within 10 weeks,
10
I think
weeks,
they have
okay.
to, yeah. So I think, and we can pull it up, I guess, but I think it said something like the appointments have to be submitted by April 26th, I believe, something like that. And then, you know, they're approved by the city council, and then the committee has 10 weeks to do their thing. So
yeah, I actually haven't read the agenda today, but I know that the information in the One Omaha blog was that the mayor has until April 26th to submit her appointees to be approved by resolution. But Janet Bonet posted something saying that like city council appointees were going to be approved on April 5th. Is that anywhere in the agenda, or is that, was she maybe more so referring to the city, that there's a public hearing? Because it's a public hearing this week and then the vote is the following, correct?
yeah, so okay. I just pulled up the attachment here. 15 members. I like how they're like representing all segments of the community, which will include minorities, individuals from various income levels, business and labor representation, and will include one member appointed by each of the city council. But yeah, so it says that, oh, okay, so it convenes for the first time, I guess, on May 16th. And then from that point, it's got 10 weeks to complete its work. The mayor is to submit her list of appointments on or before the 26th. It doesn't say anything about when the council has to, though, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
So doesn't say, I guess, specifically about
yeah, it feels kind of, it's like, you know, on the one hand, it's like cool to be like, okay, like, yeah, we're, you know, doing kind of like some of the most like in-depth work on this, but then on the other hand, it's like, wait, nobody else knows more about this.
Right, yeah. Oh, and okay, as far as do we get any say in who our city councilors appoint, I doubt it. I think they're going to just decide who they want to have, and it's just going to be kind of a done deal. I do suppose, though, that once the lists are finalized and it comes before the council, maybe then we'll have an opportunity to weigh in on it. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice if we could, because yeah, they're making decisions for the way that our city is run. So yeah, sounds like it'd be nice if there was some kind of I don't know, equitable way to make sure everyone's included, but no, like Mark said, it's already kind of a done deal. So like, unfortunately, with a lot of things we talk about on Thursdays,
Oh, here we go. I'm gonna share a screen. Or how do we do that? Down here?
if you click that, it'll stop the recording.
Oh, okay.
Yep. There, double click. There you
This is the list from 2013.
go.
Some interesting one. I know this guy. He's the guitar player for Criteria, a lawyer. And then Simone Sanders was just finished working for the Biden administration. And then Mike Kennedy. I assume it's the same Mike Kennedy.
That's the library.
I'm sorry, library guy. Walt Peffer. A lot of people love him. And then Mayor Stothard's appointments. Brinker Harding was he was the chair. And I wonder if this is the same Patrick McPherson that had a blog.
Oh, the racist guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wayne Hudson is our sheriff.
Run for,
Yeah. So this is who we got last time.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, a good example is Brinker Harding. He was,
Yeah, but
started
Franklin
there.
Thompson was the
that representative. So, some of these people that get appointed, we might see turn into city council people. I don't know. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. It probably won't be that surprising. I mean, I don't know. I think basically they just make a recommendation and it comes before council to get approved, but sure it will. I don't know. Unless it doesn't. But yeah, I think that's how it works. All right, good times. I think that is the end of the action items. Something about, actually item 62 is special liquor licenses for farmers markets.
Oh yeah, we got to get our apple cider there and drink it in the park.
Yeah, we used to back in the day, we'd ride our bike to the farmers market and get like a little, sparkling cider is good. And a baguette. Farmers market. Time is almost here. Okay, well, does anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns, requests, or dedications?
I want to say thank you. This was most informative in so many ways. I love it when either I can observe and I see all that little the interplay and the infighting and whatever else, all that great stuff. It makes such great gossip.
Yeah.
And but but also to know what the serious business is. And so thank you for what you do. Just keep it up and yeah.
And Linda, I think you
Thanks.
said you were with the League of Women Voters Omaha.
Yes.
I've been working on redistricting maps, specifically showing areas of Omaha where their polling places have changed. And I think I was one of the first ones to bring it to the attention that Omaha is actually losing 13 polling places. You don't hear that anywhere. Anyways, I have all these maps. I've been trying to reach out to someone. I think Rachel Gibson might be with the League of Women Voters.
Right.
But yeah, I'd love to share more of them with you. I just did one for District 2. It takes me a couple hours to make these maps, but it basically shows that at least 40%, I estimate closer to 50% of District 2 will have a new polling place. And so I'm trying to get it out. I don't trust the Douglas County Election Commissioner to do the right thing. But anyways, I might be reaching out to the league to share these maps. Just giving you a heads up.
Yeah, and
Okay,
I just put
great.
his email address in the chat there, Linda.
Okay, let's see.
It's just scott@barcodeart.com. But yeah, he's a real spreadsheet map making wizard over here. Obviously I'm biased, but it's true. He's really into analyzing data. So however we can help make sure that, because I mean, it just kind of feels like another variety of voter suppression in so many ways. So however we can help make sure that everyone knows where their polling places are. So it's just like, shout out to everybody, check your polling places, because I think 40% of them across the city have changed.
That's
so
what they say. Yeah.
and possibly, maybe more.
And everyone should have gotten their postcard, but it's just a postcard.
Right.
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 So, yeah.
Nobody pays attention. Well, not enough people pay attention, I guess.
Well, and even the election commissioner, so 10 years ago, we had the same problem when they were doing.
Oh, yeah. I definitely remember that one.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. We're literally doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They said this year it's 40%. I think in 2012 it was 50%. So we've gone down 10%. And unfortunately, it's not evenly distributed. And so when I see that District 2 is going to be the most, they use the word inconvenienced, it just makes my blood boil. So
Yeah.
I'm focusing mainly on District 2 just as, so I feel like they need the most help because
Most historically
they're
excluded,
being the
yeah.
most inconvenient. So I'm trying to do my work starting with District 2, but
Good.
it'd be great to have the entire map of Omaha. And also just to get the word out there that check
Yeah.
your polling place, check your polling place.
Right. Cool.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, thanks
for
for
coming.
joining us. All right. So now
Sure.
is the point where I hit stop on the recording. And sometimes if anyone has something to share that they didn't want to share while we were recording, that happens now. So for those of you watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.